What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since 2003 and starting to get very optimistic about this Pistons team. The Detroit Pistons are returning into action tonight for the first time since the All-Star break to play their first meaningful basketball post-All-Star break in many, many years. Of course, the Pistons are now sitting in the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, and down the stretch here, now through the end of the regular season, is going to be the most important stretch of Detroit Pistons basketball in a long time. So in this video, we are going to talk about the game tonight, the first game back against the San Antonio Spurs. We're going to talk about 3 things I will be paying close attention to. We're going to talk about what the ticket to winning the game will be, and overall just preview the game. So the first thing I will be paying close attention to is going to be the battle of the bigs. Victor Wembanyama, of course, the budding star, to say the least, for the San Antonio Spurs, very unfortunately has now been ruled out for the entirety of the rest of the regular season with a blood clot. Sounds somewhat similar to what Ausar Thompson dealt with, so just praying the best for Victor Wembanyama. I have been a big believer of his all the way back to when he was first on my radar at 16 years old. Really wanted the Pistons to get him. Of course, they didn't, and he has not disappointed at all during his time in the NBA. But that does leave quite the hole for them in their roster as far as bigs go. In their first game back yesterday, the Spurs actually started Bismack Biyombo, who is not really a valid NBA player at this point in his career at center. And outside of that, they did not have anybody else who is a traditional big on their roster. So I will be paying close attention to see how Jalen Duren deals with that. Looking at who they played last night, they had Harrison Barnes, Biyombo, Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell as their starters. And off the bench, they played Castle, Keldon Johnson, Sohan, and Julian Champagnie. And none of those guys outside of Biyombo were bigs. Biyombo played 16 minutes. So there's a real world where Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart could potentially really have their way this game and just beat up the Spurs on the glass, in the paint. Maybe a game like against the Bulls we had a couple weeks ago where we had 80 points in the paint because they don't have rim protection, they don't have rebounders. When they have Victor Wembanyama on the roster, they don't have much of a need for help because he can do a lot of that on his own. But without him, it could be tough sledding for the Spurs, and I really hope to see Jalen Duren especially, but also Isaiah Stewart take advantage of that. So the next thing that I'll be paying close attention to is just the Cade watch. As of right now, Cade Cunningham has obviously been our best player this year. He has been amazing. He's now in the running for All NBA. And this team goes as far as Cade brings them most nights. On games where Cade plays well, the Pistons have a good chance to win. On games where Cade plays well and we are playing against a team like the Spurs, who are sitting at 24-29, and they're also missing their main star, that should be enough for the Pistons to win the game. As long as Cade is able to do Cade things, I think that could potentially swing the game, and I'm also just interested to see how he comes out from the All-Star break. So far this year, Cade has looked pretty good anytime that he has had extended rest. The couple games where he sat out for a night or two, when he came back, there wasn't a lot of a period of time where he had to ramp back up and get back into the swing of things. So I'm expecting big things from Cade, not only tonight, but going forward for the rest of the year. This team is very dependent on Cade, especially since Jaden Ivey has gone down. Even with the additional help of Dennis Schröder coming in, that's not enough to make up for what Cade can do. On a Cade off night, things can potentially get pretty ugly. So I'm thinking as long as Cade is able to play Cade's game, tonight will be good, and rest of the year will as well. So moving on, the last thing I will be paying close attention to is seeing how Ausar's role progresses, not only tonight, but for the rest of the season. But I think tonight could be a good indicator of that. Leading up to the All-Star break, Ausar Thompson had become more involved offensively. They have been using him in different ways, sending him on more cuts, having him sit in the dunker spot more often, and running the offense at a higher clip himself. So interested to see if that continues tonight and going forward. If I was guessing or betting, I would assume yes, but I just want to make sure. Of course, he started off the year not playing, and then on a minutes restriction. But for the last month, he has been at a season high for points, a season high for minutes per game, and I'm expecting that to maintain tonight and going forward. So we'll be paying close attention to Ausar Thompson tonight. I assume that he will probably be guarding De'Aaron Fox or Devin Vassell for the majority of the game, and I think that he could do a great job of shutting them down. So to talk about what the ticket to win is going to be, it's going to be a couple things, but I think the number one thing that would make this a win pretty easily is going to be just shooting the ball well, because I think as long as we're able to hit our shots at a good clip, the Spurs really should not be able to get one over on us in any other areas. If the Spurs outshoot us, unlucky night, maybe that could cause some issues. But other than that, I think just on paper, we're a better team on the glass. We're a better team in transition. We are a better team in the paint, especially since they don't have Victor Wembanyama. So as long as we don't just have a uncharacteristically cold night from the three-point line, I think we'll be okay. Of course, turnovers have plagued us at certain stages of this season so far, but I don't think that the Spurs have enough defensive disruptors to really force us to have a bunch of turnovers, and if we do, that will be on us. But I don't foresee the Spurs having enough guys on their roster who are really locked down perimeter defenders to cause those issues, and I think that they're going to be facing some problems on that end of the floor regardless without Victor Wembanyama. Looking back last night, the Spurs actually did get a win in their first game without Wembanyama against the Phoenix Suns. They won by 11 points, and that is probably something I didn't quite expect. De'Aaron Fox did have a pretty solid game with 26 points, 9 boards, and 7 assists himself. So hopefully Ausar, the man on the screen right now, can do a good job of containing De'Aaron Fox and the rest just fall into place because, as I mentioned, this should be a win for the Pistons. Looking at our schedule going forward, it's going to get a little rocky and then a little easier and then rocky again. So I think that being able to come out from the All-Star break and being able to get a clean, nice win over the Spurs, who are missing their by far best player, is probably going to be a pretty important thing. And I think they'll be able to do it. It has been a long time coming, but I can finally get on here for a preview video and say that with confidence that I think the Pistons will win tonight. They are 4.5 point favorites. I did expect that number to be a little bit higher before I looked at it, just because I don't have that much belief in the Spurs without Victor Wembanyama. But I don't know. Maybe the odds makers actually watched the Spurs play last night, which I didn't, and saw something that I don't know. But just looking from the outside looking in, I don't think this Spurs team is all that great without Victor Wembanyama, even with their addition of De'Aaron Fox. Pretty big hole in their roster at this point with the bigs position. That's why they're starting Bismack Biyombo, a guy who hasn't played meaningful NBA minutes in quite some time. So I'm thinking that the Pistons will win this one, and I'm hoping that I can be here on this YouTube channel in 12 hours or less talking about a win. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll catch up soon.